Hey everybody, Shango from Shaping Fire here with our friend Nick Risden. I'm here visiting my folks in Michigan today, and Nick and I have been wanting to get together for a long time because, as many of you know, Nick is a Lyme patient, and he's pretty much trailblazed using concentrated cannabis oil that we mostly know as RSO when fighting Lyme disease. And so we've been talking about this for a couple years, and I asked him, I said, hey man, why don't we record something so that, you know, we can get his best practices out to everybody. So here we are on a beautiful fall Michigan day cold. So anyway, Nick, thanks for making time, dude.
Absolutely,
right
man.
on. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you.
All right, so let's start at the top, man. You know, when we first started talking about it a few years ago, the reason it came up was because you said, you know, long time cannabis guy, but that you had come across a particular RSO that like was a total game changer for you and caused you to like go down this new path. So why don't we start there? Tell me about like this first time you had an RSO that told you that, oh man, I can use this to treat my Lyme.
Well, you know, the first time was kind of the story I told you about going to a dispensary and all that, and raw juice and CBD. And I never believed in marijuana as medicine per se, but after I got bit by the tick and landed, and I was in ICU for a month. It was 4 years ago in Kentucky. They had me on so many medications that at one point I was up to 71 medications a day. And even if one of them worked, how would you really know on that level?
Which
because
one?
Of the cross contaminations of stuff. And
yeah.
I explained to you inside, like when I first got sick 4 years ago, I believed in doctors and in hospitals that you get sick and that they're going to treat you. But I was the first case of Powassan virus, meningococcal encephalitis infection Kentucky had ever seen. I was a 75th case since 1908, and I was the first one to live through it. So they didn't know what to do, and they experimented on me. And in Kentucky, there was no medical cannabis, so they would put me on prescription Dronabinol, you know, that was $400 for 10 pills of synthetic THC. I'm on all that medicine, and you know the seizures started hardcore after all the IV antibiotics. From, you know, I was in the hospital all of June, and then they had me going back to the hospital all of July for IV Rocephin. And when that stopped, the seizures started, and I'd never had seizures before. I had read some information about CBD oil, and I'd read some information about this Rick Simpson oil stuff and I've been in cannabis my whole life, but I never really believed in medical cannabis. So we come up to Michigan to a dispensary. I had a friend with a medical card, and I remember every part of this story with my brain injury the way it is, but this was so remarkable to me that we drove all the way up here. We got here at night. We went to the dispensary. I couldn't go in because I couldn't go into the back because I didn't have a medical card, but I sat in the front, and they had a raw juice bar and had CBD that they would add to the raw juice. Now that was my first experience ever with CBD. Now at the time I shook uncontrollably, almost having MS, and I had light phobia, which I still have, but not to that extent. That even at night watching TV, I'd have to wear sunglasses because from the encephalitis and meningitis, light would burn. This lady gave me a raw juice cannabis shot while we're sitting there, so just microgreens with some CBD, and I took it. And a couple of seconds later, Shannon reached over and touched my elbow like this, and she said, "You're not shaking." And when she said that, I lowered my sunglasses to look at my hands, and I wasn't shaking, and the light caught my eyes, and it wasn't burning my eyes. That was the exact moment when I'm like, oh, cannabis is medicine. Like, for being in this for years and never truly believing that cannabis was medicine, I explained this to you earlier. Like, you smoke a joint, like, to lower stress, or I believed cancer patients smoked marijuana or something that gave them appetite, or so he gets me some RSO there. It happened to be Bubba Kush RSO. Well, one of the big issues with me was sleeping. You know, you're in so much pain, you're herxing, you're vomiting around the clock, you're having seizures. I introduced this, you know, just a 0.1 milligrams of RSO in the beginning, just like a little dot on the side of the plastic capsule. Shit, I slept for 12 straight hours. And if you sleep, you heal. It allows the antibiotics, which I do believe in, to actually do their job and start to let me heal. And I was sleeping so much in recovery. But, I skipped over a very vital thing there. I told you this earlier inside, that after we did the raw juice shot, I'd lost 80 pounds. We left the dispensary. I went to a pizza place and ate half 3/4 of a pizza, and hadn't done that since I got sick. And I'm like, okay, I'm not shaking, my eyes aren't hurting, and I just got appetite. And that was just from CBD. And then the Bubba Kush was the first start that actually, it gave me sleep. And it gave me pain control, that indica and everything. And I was just consumed with this. Well, I'm in Kentucky, and I have 7 felonies from growing in 2003. In Kentucky, a half a gram of RSO is a felony. So, I'm very adamant. You know how I am. I talk about what I believe in, and I trained police dogs for 15 years, so that kind of made it difficult. And, there was a politician, Matt Daley, and the Secretary of State in Kentucky, Allison Lundgren Grimes. They wanted to push medical cannabis 4 years ago for the Kentucky patients. So they used my story, and they made me kind of the face of that. And I fought for it in Kentucky. And when it failed, I'd kind of outed myself, again, and I moved instantly to Michigan so that I could
access RSO
and be able to access. Even then, I'm looking at strain specifics. I smoke a joint of Bubba Kush, I feel a certain type of way. I smoke a joint of Kosher Kush, I feel a certain type of way. Different strains do different things. Kosher Kush, you can give me that joint blind in a bowl of joints, and if I smoke Kosher Kush, I'm eating in 30 minutes. There's a handful of strains that actually do that to me, give me an appetite. So moving up to Michigan, it was about, I need to grow as many different strains as I can, cook them all down to see which ones are working the best for my individual needs at individual times. And that's what all research went to. And I moved up here 3.5 years ago, and one day I'm sitting, I'm in my grow room, and I'm alone. I mean, I'm born and raised Kentucky. All my friends and family there. I was very lonely up here. Shannon had to stay at our dog kennel in Kentucky because we had a lot of farm animals. We couldn't just up and move everything. So I listened to podcasts around the clock, and I'm trying to learn how to grow again to the level that I'm doing, and I'm trying to go into organics, not synthetics, which I'd done for my whole life. And I came across you, and I didn't know you from Adam, and the particular podcast was you and Mean Gene from Mendocino talking about powdery mildew resistant strains. Yeah. And then I delve down the hole more because I've got YouTube there, so I'm listening to it nonstop, and I'm listening to different grow videos, and you find some very amateurish grow videos, and then when you find something that is professional, I'm like, this Kevin Jodry, or you, and then you're interviewing this Kevin Jodry guy, and I start listening to this Kevin Jodry guy, and I'm like, smartest dude I've ever heard talk about anything, period. And you're out there, like, to take you mentally back, this is when you were like doing your podcast like Green Bicycles and some with Kevin Jodry, you doing those little segments where you do like 10 segments,
yeah,
like
the
3
live
minutes
sessions,
long.
yeah.
And I listened to every one of the breeder series that Kevin Jodry did.
Yeah, that was the first thing I sponsored.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know that I grew seeds from every single guy in that breeder series?
No, that's awesome.
I watched.
It's like a who's who of Humboldt.
Yeah. Well, some of them are actually friends talk to on the phone multiple times a week and things like that. That changed my life. Like your podcast. Well, anyway, let me scale back. So, Jackson is talking about, or Mean Gene from Mendocino is talking about powdery mildew resistant strains, and I'm looking at this from a sick person that got Lyme disease and meningitis, Powassan disease, meningitis, Babesia, Bartonella, Rocky Mountain fever, spotted tick fever, rickets, Babesia bartonella, just all this shit from a tick. And that's all parasite. That's all stuff that is hosting and feeding off of me. And I start researching the powdery mildew. And the powdery mildew goes down, and it spores, and it is sinking like an anchor through the meristem of the plant, and then anchoring in and hosting off and then feeding. And I'm thinking, wow, if this plant is powdery mildew resistant, that means it's resistant to this pathogen. That if I take plants into RSO that are like that, that will help my condition more because I'm battling parasitic infection.
So you're making a corollary that if the plant can defend itself from powdery mildew, maybe it'll help you defend yourself from the parasites.
Yeah, because it's defending itself from parasites trying to host off of it. I've already got them in me. So I'm listening to all these podcasts, I'm listening to all this shit. I'm up in Michigan by myself. And I'd been in California several years ago for 6 months training dogs on Coronado Island in San Diego at a contract out there. So I got my medical card when I was out there. And it was like a 3-year California medical card. It was still valid for 6 months at the time. So Shannon's in Kentucky. I'm sick as shit. I'm not even supposed to drive the car. I'm up here stuck in the house growing. I book a plane ticket to San Francisco from Detroit. I go and get on a plane. I fly to San Francisco, drive up to Wonderland Nursery. I buy the Rule 7 cut, ship it back to myself, go to this research everywhere where I can find this Mean Gene from Mendocino guy's gear. And Compassionate Hearts Ukiah, Spencer, the only place I could even find his seeds 3.5 years ago. Anywhere. So I fly all the way there, meet Brandon from Third Gen Family Farm, who happened to be there that day. He saw my port, explained my story. Dude hooked me up with some seeds. Never met me before. I bought a bunch of Mean Gene's gear. Flew back. Rule 7 was waiting for me on the porch when I got there overnight to rock it out, grow it out, start taking it. It took me about 3 months from that process. Start taking it. This is around end of October, and I don't know how to explain how it was changing. My legs were getting stronger. The antibiotics were more efficient. I was gaining weight. I was getting muscle mass back. I was up here and I was thriving. I was learning how to grow. I was by myself. We had to go to the hospital in Washington, D.C. for a week every month. So I'd leave D.C. or leave Michigan. Shannon would leave Kentucky. We'd meet up in D.C. I'd get treated. I'd come back, and the doctors were like, "What are you doing? Because you're dancing faster than the other Lyme disease patients.
What kind of sorcery do you have?"
Yeah, what else are you adding into it? I'm talking to him about the CBD. I'm talking to him about, which he promoted the CBD, the doctor did, but I'm talking to him about the THC, and he can't wrap his head around it because he is very medical trained. Like, he needs to know exact milligrams, exact, everything. And I'm like, it's not like that. Like, I'm trying to figure out which plant works, which dosage.
More analog than that.
At first I started off with a drop of RSO. Now I'm keep building up till I could get to a gram a day. And when I got on the Rule 7, I'm doing blood work constantly, and it's showing my blood work is doing better. It's showing that that the antibiotics are working. So after about 2 months of this, the Emerald Cup is coming up. I decided to fly out there to tell some of these people, like Emerald Mountain, to tell them, like, yo, your Royal Kush is helping. To tell Mean Gene from Mendocino, yo, your podcast changed my life. To tell you. Now, I flew out with the smartest lady I've ever met, a neurosurgical nurse, and my doctor. And we went out there, and she was in the Humboldt, or the Emerald Cup sessions,
Yep.
like learning as much as she could. And I saw you in there, and I couldn't walk up and say hello. I was just, you helped save my life. And I did stand in line. I walked up and I talked to Mean Gene, and walked up and talked to Emerald Mountain, bought a bunch of seeds, talked to Capulator, a friend of mine, and gave him a bunch of Mac. And but I presented my doctors, and the nurse actually showed no, this is actually working, and from the medical standpoint, we don't understand why. We're trying to figure it out, And I remember when I walked up and shared all this stuff to Jackson, and I had like a doctor there and a nurse, and I've got all these medical files, and I've got a port in my chest, and I'm like, your shit saved my life. And there's this whole line of people waiting to get into his booth, and his jaw is like, because I'm showing him, like, I'm breaking down osmine and Nirladol, in your lines, powdery mildew resistance, battling the parasitic stuff in there.
Because at this point, you've done a lot of research on his stuff.
And I've got all the research in front of me, and I'm breaking it down. I'm not just out there like, this helped me. Like, here's the blood work here. We're from this week to this week.
And you're speaking fast because you don't want to take up too much of his
time.
My
hemoglobins went up. My creatine levels went up. My blood pressure regulated. The seizures dropped, etc., etc. And I was supposed to be dead from this shit a long time ago. The fact that I'm still sitting here even having this conversation is a medical miracle. They don't figure it out. I mean, they like to scare me with every 8 months being like, hey, you only got so much more time. And I'm still here 4 years later. And it did come back to these strains. Now, I went through Mean Gene's Pina, and I found a particular pheno that helped me a lot. And there's been many phenos. Rootwise Soil Dynamics had a king side chick. I lost the cut. That one helped me a lot. Powdery mildew resistant. I had a Sunshine Daydream from Bodie that Happy Little Tree Company gave me. It was off the charts in Nirladol. That stuff helped with shaking. I'm constantly looking for different plants for different things because I have a lot of issues.
So let me clarify for a second. So what you're telling me is that you found that the Royal Kush, which you went after because of its powdery mildew resistance, it was helping so much as well. You're like, wait a minute. Not only is it helping with the powdery mildew just being a good plant, it's got some uniqueness about it, and then you delineated that it was the osmine and the Nirladol that were the two things that you wanted to hunt for more of. Am I getting you right?
Well, osmine and Nirladol, from research into the NIH archives, the National Institute of Health, have archives that anybody can access. They have published papers that show that marijuana was killing cancer cells in 1979. So they also have stuff on parasitic killing, osmine, Nirladol, the tea tree, oil tree, different stuff working on different parasitics. I was looking at stuff that people in Africa, tribes and stuff used for centuries with malaria and parasitic and stuff like that. So osmine and Nirladol kept coming up. Osmine and Nirladol don't pump out of Royal Kush to that level like Sunshine Daydream and different things, but it was the powdery mildew, just overall resistance of Royal 7. And for you all that have never ran Royal 7, I have seen a plant with bud rot and coated in powdery mildew laying on the Royal 7 and not a drop of it on it. We had, in Michigan, I started growing in 1995 when I was 15. This is the wettest year that I've ever grew it.
This year is?
This year, hands down. I had more bud rot than I ever dealt with this year. And even my neighbor, who farms 3,000 acres of corn around here, said this is the wettest winter ever for him on corn. They've been having to cook their corn off in ovens at night to keep the molds and everything down. And the Royal 7 here, not a drop. Not a drop, it's amazing what that plant can do. So you look at that other plants beside it are dropping off and it's still hardy. That's what you're looking for to fix yourself when you're dealing with the same things. You're dealing with the same parasitic infections. Now I've tried to experiment, because I know there's 10,000 other strains out there I can find, but I screw myself up every time I go off Royal 7. And it's Royal 7 in particular, that particular cut.
So it's more than just the osmine and the Nirladol. There's something else in the mix in the Royal 7, you're still trying to figure out what that is.
Yeah, and because it doesn't always transfer. So there's another.
Keep on talking.
Yeah, there's another plant, Hollywood Pure Kush. So I say I have two mentors in this game. Now, I don't think they call me their mentoree, and they have no choice on me calling them their mentors, but that's Kevin Jodary and Mean Gene from Mendocino. I love them unequivocally. They've just helped me so much through this journey. And, it's not just, there are multiple plants out there that'll help you. And I hear Kevin tell this story through podcast. Maybe it was yours, I can't remember, but it was about a guy that had this disease where he hiccuped nonstop. Now it started off that he was at a dispensary you know, they were closing up shop. It was the end of the day. Somebody pulled in there in a wheelchair or something like that, and Kevin sold him some of his personal smoke because they'd already shut down. It's Hollywood Pure Kush. Guy came back the next day and was like, yo, that's the best I've felt in forever with my spasticity and shaking and things. And Kevin gave me some more, and then other couple people tried it, and the same worked for them, etc., etc. So when me and you really linked up was the Michigan Regenerative Conference up here 3 years ago, and Kevin's telling the story. At this point, me and Kevin have a slight relationship, just because I've flown out to California and tracked him down, and I think he respected that. Like, this dude ain't just saying he's trying to get better; he's putting in the work. And I literally followed him around the Emerald Cup for an hour. Didn't have the nerve to say anything to him, and finally he turned around and was like, "Yo, man, can I help you?" And I was like, I pulled my shirt down. I was like, I got a port, and instantly he's like, I'm sick. Your video helped me. Here's all the research. My doctors and nurses here, they'd like to talk to you, you know. And so Kevin tells this story about the Hollywood Pure Kush, and then this guy that hiccuped nonstop. I mean, to where a business guy, where he couldn't even hold a conversation, where he'd have to drink something to make himself vomit, and then he had like a 15 minutes of no hiccups, you know, or something like that. If I'm botching the story, I apologize. And when he tried the Hollywood Pure Kush, it fixed that for him. So, you know, I get a hold of Kevin, I get the Hollywood Pure Kush, I go out to California, I get it, I fly back on it. I'm sure some people have seen the pictures. I flew right with it on the plane because it mattered like that, and I was dying. That shit helped with my shaking a lot. But when I tried to breed the Hollywood Pure Kush, even into the Royal, to try to find either one of those things together, like the best of both worlds, I lost it both. You know, because I take Rule 7 RSO, and I'm gonna Herx. And by Herx, the easiest way is to show. Like, I have Babesia, so I take Rule 7 RSO, and then it's gonna like, that is herxing, this rash and everything. It's killing off the parasites inside. Then I have to flush the parasites out of me, you know, and that's the J. Herxheimer reaction. There's these microparasites and bacteria and everything inside of you. You kill them off. If you don't get them out of you, the doctor in DC explained it to me, like when a mouse dies in your house, like in a cabinet, it kind of like rots and it'll discolor the wood and it'll stink, and like ammonia and all these chemicals come off of the mouse, decomposing the metal. So the parasites and stuff inside of you kill them off. If you don't flush them out, then they're releasing chemicals and stuff inside of you. They're
like
making
polluting you, through its death
and they're
process.
making you hurt. They're increasing your inflammation, your joint pressure. The bacteria, the Lyme disease bacteria, likes to attack soft tissue, eyes, brain, testicles, kneecaps, ankles, you know, like where there's a lot of fluid in that area. So, and with my brain injury, sometimes like I'm going to lose myself, like what we were even talking about here. But I have no clue what we were talking about.
All right. Well, then, so you were talking about how the fluid in your joints would hurt, especially with the herxing, right?
So getting that out and following a protocol. Lemon water helps detox. Epsom salts, ancient minerals, ancient salts are a little bit better than just regular Epsom salts at CVS. As much fluids as I can drink a day. All the mushrooms that I can take. Coffee enemas. Doesn't sound fun, but it will detox your body out. You know, anything that you can do to help clean out the system from the herxing, from the pain that's going. Like before you got here this morning, my first step when I wake up in the morning, because at night I take all my RSO, I'm herxing out in the mornings. First step is lemon water. Second step, I mean, I still got a port in my chest that is connected into my heart. You know, we either run fluids or I'm right in the bathtub. The fluids help flush everything out. I drink a lot of coffee in the morning and water. I'm trying to make myself urinate as much as I can, flush all this out. It's a constant trick of detox. I do ozone treatment where they take my blood, clean it, pumping it back into me. The hyperbaric chamber has been a game changer for me. An absolute game changer. The Lyme disease caused And when I say Lyme disease, and all of you always say this with me with Lyme disease, my Lyme disease is probably in remission. It's all the other parasites, Babesia, Bartonella, which Babesia isn't. Like, it's active right now on my chest. So it's sometimes trying to figure out which one of these things is trying to kill me, today. And, but everybody always tries to send me information about Lyme disease, and I get that people are trying to help, and I don't mean this rude. I mean, like, it's not about the Lyme disease. It's what the parasites did while they were tunneling around my body and tunneling in and out of muscles and corkscrewing into bones and going
just
in
wreaking
and out of
havoc
soft
everywhere they
tissue
went,
and everything that caused my Epstein-Barr, my stiff man syndrome, my C5, C6, C7 vertebrae, my neurological conditions, all these weird diseases I have now that all come from that. Like, even for me to be sitting out here to do this interview, one of my biggest issues is temperature regulation. So we just shift temperature in Michigan like 4 or 5 days ago. I have on 2 sweatshirts, 2 t-shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and this big jacket, Hood Lamb jacket. Shout out Adam Dunn. This is my favorite jacket in the world, made out of hemp. It's rated down to -5 degrees, but it's also heavy, and I need that weight and stuff for me. It's a constant game of staying ahead of it. But what it did to me more than anything was wreak hell on me mentally. Parasites running through my brain. The aggression, the rage. You all can Google this if you wanted to. Like there is a symptom called Lyme rage. I am the poster child for Lyme rage. I wasn't this way before I got bit by a tick. My job was to train the most highly protective, aggressive, and working line German Shepherds and Malinois to cap that aggression, control that self, to work through it, and to do all this through operant conditioning, through Skinnerism and theories of dog training that wasn't based off force, was based off teaching and learning and understanding. And then all of a sudden these parasites wreaking havoc through me, and I couldn't apply the own shit that I've always done. And it's been a constant battle. This summer alone, I think I had 11 surgeries since June, from brain all the way down into the tumor removals, that has been caused by Lyme disease. So keeping control of the mental illness, and we've talked about this, and I'm very open about this. You said even inside, like, your posts on social media have really changed in the last 5 months.
You're clearly more upbeat in the last 6 months.
It's funny when they tell you you're going to die, you do everything to not die. I mean, you always know it, but once they lay it down for you, and you're like, not today, not today. And I went through too much hell. And it's not just me. I'm not special. There are 500,000 of us Lyme disease patients. I mean, yes, I'm weird in my Powassan story, but there are so many of us with Lyme disease, and so many people undiagnosed. And that was the whole purpose of us doing this, to teach people how to try to help themselves when doctors won't help you.
All right, we're back after a little break there. So I want to finish up with this, Nick, because so far you've been pretty clear about how you decided that you wanted to start focusing on using RSO for your Lyme support, and then you're chasing the Royal Kush, and then realizing that there's so much about that plant that's helping your Lyme disease, and then you started to go into some of the other things that you were doing too, right? Because I think you've laid out the cannabis stuff pretty well that we wanted to get out, but I know that you really believe in the synergistic combination of the cannabis for your endocannabinoid system with all of these other traditional like folk medicines that you really believe are working with the cannabis to better your endocannabinoid system, and then like all of you in fighting the Lyme disease. So I figure since we're here, we should go beyond just cannabis and talk about those things. So do you want to start with the medicinal mushrooms?
Yeah, so I mean, my major issue outside of just the Lyme disease is that my brain swelled. I had a massive brain infection, meningitis encephalitis, which caused all kinds of neurological issues. So, getting into like with Dragonfly Earth Medicine, we're DEM Pure here, and learning a little bit about mycology and things from that nature, and then following Paul Stamets and getting into that to a massive level. Reishi, chaga, lion's mane are all just some of, every day that are mushrooms that have to go back into my system. It helps with my neurological, helps with my speech patterns. I don't think I've stuttered much during this interview today, but there are days where I've even explained it to you. Like, I'll be like, "Hey, what's up? Scissors is here to visit me." Shango, you know. I call Shannon Sarah or Samantha or Stacy or whatever, and she doesn't get mad at me because I never dated a Sarah. It's just word association that I get confused with the stuff. Well, lion's mane, reishi, chaga, all that stuff. If I'm leaving something out there, I apologize. Any of those medicinal mushrooms I can take, I do. Jawworks Farm, grows a lot of mushrooms, makes some stuff for me. Eclectic Alchemy, a healer, herbalist, makes some stuff for me. So mushrooms are a very major part of it. I microdose 0.14 grams a day of psychedelic mushrooms to help with the depression and the sadness. For those that know me, know that I battle with massive rage and suicidal ideations. It's I'm not suicidal. I'm not even depressed right now. Let me have 10 seizures today, and it's not me. It just changes all the chemicals that are going through my brain, and that stuff has helped me tremendously. It's brought me back. If I had a seizure right now, the first thing Shannon's doing is bringing me turkey tail and chaga tinctures, and then CBD and all that other stuff. And let's not, and I say this to the marijuana community, let's not downplay CBD. Just because hemp, we kind of looked at hemp as our ugly cousin, and the hemp industry and all, and CBD flooding the market because it was, and excuse my language, but bullshit CBD sold in gas stations to people who were sick and couldn't afford it. And this goes out to everybody. 500 milligrams of CBD should not cost $69.95. Most people, and I believe the CBD is misdosed. People are taking way too little. I take 500 milligrams CBD a day. And I have went through this stuff to find what levels actually help after all these seizures, and I can experiment because I go through it. Taking a tincture of 13 milligrams CBD a day is just not doing it for me. Now, that doesn't mean that you, in your particular cannabinoid system, that 13 milligrams wouldn't be enough of CBD to bring that back down. We're all individuals. That's what doctors can't seem to figure out about dosing this stuff, is it's individual cannabinoid systems. I know people who years later, I don't get high. I just don't. But you look at Snoop Dogg, who've been smoking all this weed for years. He's in a video and he's all like, I'm like, how the hell is he still, his cannabinoid system is different. He's also not taking 3 to 4 grams of RSO a day, which I would like.
Increases your tolerance.
Which increases your tolerance. But even before I was doing RSO, I always smoked like crazy when I was dog training, and I just didn't get a buzz like that. And I know Dr. Ethan Russo and different people talk about taking, breaks and resetting the endocannabinoid system. In my situation, I almost can't. I do skip RSO about once every 2 weeks or something to help it be more effective. Because like any medication, the more you take it, you build up tolerance. I take 3 to 4 grams of RSO every day. That is scary to somebody out there that is hearing me say that takes one single drop and feels drugged up. You have to tighter that up. To any patient out there that's ever doing this, you take a drop, and then the next week you take 2 drops, and the next week you take 4 drops, and then you double that, you double that, you double that, you double that. And yes, and I agree, for people who have never, that aren't a cannabis user, and then you have to give your grandmother RSO, and she's never had this before, and she's sleeping 18 hours a day, and she's like, I hate this, I don't like this feeling. For somebody who's never, had marijuana, in drunkenness is almost what I call it, because this is different than smoking or something. It's like edibles times a billion. You have to remember the medical benefits that you are getting. It is okay to sleep. You need to recover. If you're going through chemo, if you're going through whatever, you need to sleep and recover. Your body will adjust to it. It is scary in the beginning. It will get better. It is no different than the first time doctors give you Lortab or a pain pill. Like, you're really drugged up from them, but you start taking them and they lose their efficiency. You will build up on the RSO. And I know it's scary in the beginning. I've had a lot of patients talk to me that have never been cannabis users, like, I really don't like the feeling. Power through, it gets better. You know, for me, I love the feeling. You know, for cannabis users, they don't understand that. They love the feeling. But RSO can be hard when you're already sick, and now you're kind of like, if you never took RSO, it's almost like doing a mushroom trip.
Yeah.
You know, it's very
psychedelic.
You know, power through, be prepared. It's okay. Have food on hand when you start this stuff. And I know that in some places this is still a negative taboo. Marijuana is medicine, but we're losing that number.
Yeah.
We're way bigger on states that are than not. I would tell you to research how to make it. That's all I can tell you. I told Shango a story inside of the first time that I made my own RSO. I cooked down a quarter pound. I paid $800 for this, and I cried when I was cooking it down because I was so scared I was going to ruin all this material. And at the time, I'm handing doctors so many checks to stay alive, and I'm in Kentucky, not growing. A quarter pound of marijuana is nothing to me now. It was everything to me, and sometimes growers and producers and processors need to remember this. Quarter pound ain't nothing else. It's everything to somebody in a one-bedroom apartment parceling out a check just to pay for their medicine and they're disabled.
Yeah.
Be compassionate caregivers. Take care of sick people. You know, but it is very scary when you do it. But it will work out. It is a very simple process. People can help you through that process. Look at the videos when you are researching this on YouTube. I learned the hard way, like even trying to find you all the goofy videos. And I'm not, at least people are trying and putting out content. But look at the videos.
All instructions
are not equal,
the same.
Not even close. And look at information. Look at how many people have liked it. Look at how many subscribers they have. Because you have to become your own healer. Because the medical system will forget you. If you don't fit into their cookie cutter approach, then they'll forget you. And at that point, you've got to remember yourself and you got to fight for yourself. And it is very empowering to be your own healer. It's very empowering that doctors still to this day don't understand why I still keep staying alive, even though I constantly am having all these surgeries and all these issues. It's the RSO, it's the mushrooms, and it's the willingness to keep researching, to try to find some semblance of my old life. And it's, I just implore, there's so many growers and breeders out there. Look at your powdery mildew resistant lines. Look at your medical lines. Look at your super strong stony lines. We look at that as, whoa, we got really stoned off this, but you concentrate that down, that may be the lifesaver for somebody who's battling chemo and needs to sleep, or strong like that.
It's amazing how many of our THC rec growers, like who've just been like growing for smoke for years, don't even have a lot of basis in the medical side too. Like flower growers who don't know how to make RSO, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And it is and I believe it's something everybody needs to have in their tool set. RSO is an antibiotic, and that's something that we can make at home. And it's just having the research out there. I mean, I've done all my research, but I was talking to you inside that I would still like to learn more. The terpenes are the carrier for healing. In a lot of my RSO, we're baking it off, we're stripping it down with alcohol. I'm losing all my terpenes.
Right.
I mean,
your house smells great though.
Yeah. So I seal it in jars and put it in the oven, and you can actually see the oil on the jars when you bring it out. But I would, you get ice water hash, fresh frozen, whatever, you can smell all the terpenes in there. RSO all pretty much smells the same. You can get, differences there. But I'm even trying to go deeper with it on figuring out how to decarb the ice water hash, properly, to be able to just eat that. And I experiment a lot with this stuff because the terpenes are carriers. Terpenes are a big part of the healing process. And I believe that's a big part of the Royal Kush. Those are, it's like this sour, diesel-y purpley Kush Afghani mixture smell that you damn near find in nothing else.
Yeah.
And that terpene profile really helps that to go over. Raw juicing cannabis leaves, guys, from the same powdery mildew resistant strain. Raw juicing flower, tastes horrible, do it. Healing properties come from this stuff. I'd like to get into a little bit of even the root tech, making medicine out of the roots from the Rule 7, but I just haven't stepped to that level yet. Making a salve out of the Rule 7 for like the issue that I've got on my chest, or out of another powdery mildew resistant strain. And I'm always cautious when people are like, well, I've got a strain that's powdery mildew resistant. Is it really? Or are you a good grower and you just don't have powdery mildew? So
Right.
it's like, let me see it growing right by a powdery mildew plant. I remember the first time you were at my house, like 2 years ago, I stopped real quick and I said, yo, the flower room's about to shut off. I got to go spray everything down with water. And you were like, what? And I'm like, trying to create powdery mildew, you know? And you were like,
remember this?
I don't remember. He was like, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody trying to create powdery mildew. And I'm like, man, I'm trying to find the strains that power through that shit. You know, the work this year. And I don't say it because I bred it, because I got the Hydra TKNL5 Haze Pam did horrible outdoors with powdery mildew. The work, no bud rot, no powdery mildew, pushed through the cold. And in Michigan, we had the wettest grow season and the vapor pressure deficit. Like, we had days in August this year that were 50, and then the next week it was 80. You know, so like the plant's taking that pressure. So I'm gonna break down a bunch of the work into RSO form. What I have learned though now is to not go off Royal ever. I've done that a couple times. Like,
So everything complements the Royal Kush 7 that you've got.
I went off Royal from December to July this year for personal reasons. I went into other RSOs, different stuff. I deteriorated so bad, and I still didn't just make the pair up. And got back onto the Royal in July about the time that, you know, things were real bad then.
Yeah.
I was telling people goodbye, calling people on the phone, telling you I love you and shit like that. And, got back on the Royal, and Lord, I'm gonna get emotional. I have came a long way, I have came a long way, and it's because of this podcast, finding Kevin Jodry and me, Gene from Mendocino, but then applying the information. I can smack you upside the head with all kinds of information. If you don't apply it, you're not going to get anywhere. How desperate are you to get better? Because there is hope out there. You just got to find it. You got to experiment. It's not going to be quick, you know, at all. Even when I flew out to get that Rule 7, you know, at Wonderland, I knew when I got home I had to veg it up for a few weeks, take cuts, get it in the flower, and boy, the hope was real. And it's proved itself over and over to me. You know, Mandelbrot lives on. Thank you, Roz Truth, for creating that strain. Shout out to Emerald Mountain for continuing it. It is a very medicinal plant. But just because Rule 7 works that way for me, and I do believe it'll work that way for you if you're battling Lyme disease, but maybe you have a different issue. Had a brain injury from concussions, you're battling cancer, you're battling whatever, you've got to find strains that pair that up. Look at terpene profiles, look on the NIH, you can research this stuff, find the strains that work for you. All marijuana is not created equal. There are some RSOs I will never take. I love smoking the flower, but the RSO isn't worth it, you know. And unfortunately, to figure out that information, you got to go through trial and error, and sometimes that error can be very costly.
So it's on that point that I want to finish up with you today, and that is this idea that, you know, you have shared with us over this 40 minutes or so what has been, you know, a life's work for you, and then it got way more intense, you know, 3.5 years ago, right? Yep. And so you've gotten even more intense the last 3.5 years. And part of why you wanted to do this video was because so many people contact you via, you know, Instagram and everywhere, because they hear that you're the guy who's using RSO to manage his Lyme, and they want to know why, right?
Yeah.
And so we're doing this so that, you know, you can just send them the link, right?
Yeah.
And they can hear your thoughts all at once. I know that there are people who are watching who are feeling like so overwhelmed, right? Because of all the information, all the detail, people maybe who aren't from cannabis, and so they don't even really know a lot of the vocabulary they're using. So for these people, they're going to have to learn all of that to even do what you're doing. And I'm sure that a lot of these folks are overwhelmed. So what I'd like you to finish with is, you know, real direct advice for the Lyme folks who are watching. What words of encouragement can you give them to about completing this what seems like an insurmountable task? Because, you know, you are overcoming insurmountable tasks just staying alive every day, and I know that you've given a lot of thought to it philosophically. So what advice can you give folks about just doing it?
I guess first thing is mental health wise, you're a warrior. And that's not just to Lyme folks, that's to anybody sick. You're a warrior. You're battling something that other people around you do not understand and do not know. So keep warring on. I mean, that's very difficult to say, but take pride in the fact that you are a warrior and you're overcoming stuff that others aren't. I do understand this is overwhelming. Start off by looking at research Rick Simpson oil. Of course, some of these things talk about harsh chemicals, RSO. You need to avoid that. I do use alcohol to make RSO.
But we don't use naphtha anymore.
No, we don't do that. But so you take that piece out, but you can go to Rick Simpson's actual website. They have good information, at least starts the process. Don't be as overwhelmed with it, realizing you're taking your life in your hands and you're creating your medicine. If you're scared when you do it at first, start with a half ounce. Start with a quarter. You know, it'll be a small wash. Somebody can help you if you're in a legal state. There are tons of videos on YouTube, but you have to find the right ones. It is very overwhelming, and I get it. I've been through the whole process. I had to literally leave my home and everything I was familiar with in Kentucky to move to Michigan to do this. Take a deep breath. Reach out to some people. Maybe you need to go to the dispensary and go ahead and get some from the right place. Though I'm cautious about that. How was it grown? What was in it? What if it's grown synthetically? All that stuff. It's going to compound when it's made. See, I'm even going to make more issues. Be calm, find an organic grower, find a real caregiver in your area, and there are real ones everywhere, and they will help you. Send people messages, try to talk. That's what I did in the beginning, even with you, different people. Like, I tried to learn more and understand. I get tons of messages, I can't answer them all, and I get overwhelmed by it, but this is a step that maybe CBD can be the first step. That at least starts building your cannabinoid system is what I usually have people do for like 4 or 5 days if they never took cannabis. It'll build the cannabinoid system and activate it so that the first initial boom is not just knocking them out for 24 hours off RSO. It does get better. It can get better, and you have to be your own fighter and healer. And I know that sucks. I know it's scary. I was talking to Shango inside that when I got sick, I truly believed in the medical system. Like, you went to the hospital, you're sick, doctor's going to help you. It's not that case, especially if they don't understand. Find people that can help you. There's a lady named Eclectic Alchemy. Look her up. I mean, there's herbalists and healers that can help you through your journey to get there. They can guide you, because it's a lot, from the mushroom tech to the RSO to even knowing when to take it. And I recommend, you know, in the beginning for somebody on RSO, take it right before you go to bed, because if it's negative experience, you're sleeping through most of them. Yeah. And yes, you're going to wake up a little hungover in the morning. Coffee is your friend during those moments. You know, just keep powering through it. It gets better. And if I can help you, I'll try. But mine and your focus always needs to be yourself. I tried to help so many people with that journey, and then I left my own journey. You know, you have to remember that you're the patient also. You got to take care of yourself. So that would be it's overwhelming. I know that would be where I would start.
Right on. Well, yeah.
One more thing.
All right.
You said about overwhelming, and I can't reiterate the first time I made that RSO. I literally cried in the kitchen thinking, I'm going to ruin all this. And $800, I told you inside, could have been $80 million. I couldn't replace that. And so I also say that to growers, be compassionate. You know, it's not hard to make RSO and get that to people in need. And everybody should do that to an extent. We rode the wave of marijuana as medicine to get it legalized everywhere. Now put your money where your mouth is. Help people out that are sick.
Word.
So
that's great.
I appreciate you, man.
Awesome, dude. Thank
you so
much.
Shout out to you.
Yeah.
Because these podcasts matter. Because without it, I would have never found Kevin Jody or Mean Gene. And those two continually try to keep me alive, keep me mentally happy, keep me with right genetics. But it's important. It's important. And that's what I'm saying. I found him, then I found them, and people were willing to help. You can do the same thing. So, thank you.
Awesome. Cool. So, for Nick Risden from Lyme Rising Farm, I'm Shango Los from Shaping Fire. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
All right.
Let me walk you back and show you the farm real quick.